What I'm saying is, the election was a major issue with COVID at the beginning.
All these changes, everything
Quickly.
we've talked about so far in this conversation, the changes with the drop boxes, the in-person voting, the photo ID, all that was a result of this CCP virus, the COVID thing. So that is what precipitated it all. It was, if you're asking about whether it was used, Jim, I think it was grossly used.
You're back again, aren't you? Welcome back to Talking Racine. Say welcome to the nice people, George.
Welcome to the nice people.
I knew that was trouble as soon as I said it. Mr. George Myers. Jim Spodek, you're not going to say anything?
Welcome.
I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen. We're all glad you're here. Now, you do a lot of research during the week, and you've discovered that there's potential dirt in politics, in American politics?
Yeah, surprise.
I'm appalled. And the place that is seems to be the hotbed right now, at least the one that's getting the most attention, is Green Bay, Wisconsin. Green Bay, Wisconsin's mayor is being looked at as potentially getting kicked out of office.
Well, they're definitely asking for resignations. There are, seems to be growing.
Yeah, and it was covered by, what channel was it that you got a copy
Channel
of?
6.
Channel 6. So we're going to play a little clip for you right now.
Right.
About the goings-on up in Green Bay. And the question is, where else is it happening?
Yeah, where else might it go? That's exactly right.
Right.
So go ahead and run that in, and then we'll have a discussion.
Right. Calvi looks into the allegations and the connections to Milwaukee.
Brown County's former clerk testifies on the 2020 election.
I just felt like it put a taint on the integrity of the election, because come to find out later, he had all 4 keys, access to the election location.
She's talking about Michael Spitzer Rubenstein from the group National Vote at Home Institute, who had previously worked for Democratic campaigns. The city considered an advisor. On October 7th, he asked Green Bay's clerk, "Can we help with curing absentee ballots that are missing a signature or witness signature address? We have a process map that we've worked out with Milwaukee for their process." An open records request revealed the emails, which conservative website Wisconsin Spotlight published. City leaders called him an election grant mentor. Green Bay used a $1.6 million grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life, a nonprofit funded by Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, to help with the election. Grant money also went to Kenosha, Madison, Racine, and Milwaukee.
You're used to seeing drop boxes at your public library. This $2 million donation for the Center for Tech and Civic Life led to absentee ballot drop boxes at every Milwaukee public library.
In the Green Bay email, Spitzer Rubenstein mentions Milwaukee several times. "I'm helping Milwaukee assign inspectors to central count stations as well as polling places," he wrote.
Well, it sounds like a real civic-minded guy.
Yeah.
The amount of money that Mark Zuckerberg through Facebook put into that election was, you estimated, somewhere between $280 and $500 million.
About $400 million is
kind of
a
a
last election.
Yeah, rational.
No. What happened in Green Bay though? They came in and they were just coming in to institute some ideas of how to do voting better or whatever it was, and eventually just took over the place.
And it sounds like it. He had all 4 keys for different locations.
Yeah, wherever it was.
Right.
And so the clerk was no longer running it. And the thing is, what they were saying was that there was communication in this regards down to Milwaukee, but you're also saying Racine, Jim.
Right.
What's that connection?
5 cities. Now, we brought this up on a
Right.
previous show. 5 cities got money from Mark Zuckerberg through the Center for Tech and Civil Life is the organization that was set up. Racine, about $1 million. I think Green Bay was a little more than $1 million, and I think Kenosha a little bit more than $1 million. In Green Bay, though, what happened was a representative from Zuckerberg, his name is Michael Spitzer Rubenstein, came in, and there's emails now that popped up that said, hey, he was really orchestrating this election. The clerk actually quit in Green Bay and said, this can't be run like this. She quit, which actually opened it up. But what's happened now is, with these 5 cities, it says here, is that now they're investigating Milwaukee. How did this, happen, and how much of influence did the Zuckerberg money have an influence in Milwaukee? Well, let's just go one step a little bit deeper, and we're talking about Racine, because Cory Mason was basically the kingpin.
Yeah, he was the guy that the money all
Right.
filtered through to
Right.
disperse out to these other communities.
And how would that? Why Cory Mason? Why
Not me? Why didn't I have access?
Well, listen, let's do this. Let me play the rest of this, and then let's come back and we'll talk about how, and why.
Okay.
Milwaukee's election director, Claire Woodall-Vogue, told me she couldn't do an interview today, but that she remained in control of all election administration decisions and functions for the city of Milwaukee since July of last year. Jason Calvi, Fox 6 News.
Now, the city of Green Bay responding, calling the allegations egregious and false.
Well, who from Green Bay was responding that way? I mean, that's important.
Probably
to know.
the mayor. They had a statement.
The mayor?
Yeah.
Well, he's the guy that's got
Yeah.
all the fingers pointing at him.
Right.
But
Well,
we really don't know. We're just kind of assuming it was the mayor.
Right now, they're still investigating, I think,
Yeah.
and they're asking for investigations. The state is. But, we had brought this up on the show. We're talking about drop boxes, and we're talking about, the balloting and how it was all put together, and it never went through the state legislature, which there were lawsuits because they said, how come this money was just dumped in these communities, and they were basically willy-nilly to do what they wanted, and there was never any oversight by the Wisconsin legislature, which is law.
Well, there was oversight by Zuckerberg's people, though.
Right.
Right?
But that's, again,
They listed out how they wanted this money
Right.
spent, and they wanted the communities where it was spent to be accountable
Correct.
for where it went. And what do we got from, this is from Racine here, where a total grant of $942,100 was received, and this is all it took to explain where the money went.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would expect. I know I had a business. You guys had businesses. You don't put out one piece of paper that explains where close to $1 million went. That's crazy.
One of the questions, Doc, how did it all come to Cory Mason for him to win? Because here's another, and I'm going to run it across the screen, is he was the one, and this is it, where he was the go-to person or the point person on this money to be distributed in the state of Wisconsin to these 5 cities. Why Cory?
Again, why not me? Why not you?
Yeah,
Yeah. I
But-
like spending money.
But that was on May 28th of 2020. So this money was granted. We did a little bit of a timeline here, and by June 15th, the money was granted. And there was a contract that also had to be signed.
Right.
That contract, we didn't get the one of Cory Mason's, but we did get John Antaranium in Kenosha, and that was an $862,000. But it spells out the contract, and actually John Antaranium signed it on 7/27/20. One of the interesting parts of this is they were basically saying what happened was they did a safer at home program, and this was designed by the 5 cities, and each one adhered to this safer at home. They then brought this, apparently agreed upon it, signed a contract with Zuckerberg, or this Center for Tech and Civil Life, and basically in it said, in their sole discretion, that they control the money, and you do what we say in this plan, or we can claw back that money.
Well, they had them write up a plan, a proposal, a proposed plan, and then they said, okay, we approve that, but you better adhere to it,
Right.
or we're going to want some of this money back
Right.
for things that you spent on things that were not approved, basically, is kind of the way it went. So what are some of the things that we spent money on here in Racine? I think that's an interesting question. I mean,
That is an interesting question.
well, one of the things that we know about was that $250,000 that was designated for a Get Out to Vote motorhome. There's a big bus that was going to be running around town like kind of like the bookmobile, I guess.
Yeah, like a precinct, they called it, a precinct vehicle.
Yeah, and it was purpose was to recruit people to vote that
Yeah, I drive
hadn't
around.
registered.
Yeah,
show
make
them
it
what
easy
to
to
do,
vote,
so on and so forth.
which I don't think is a bad idea. The fact is, did you actually buy it?
Well, yeah, exactly, because that's listed under encumbrances and commitments here. And we think that this was the bust, $222,045. And the original proposal was an estimate of $250,000. So they got it down to 222. That's a big savings.
Yeah. Well, if that's what it is.
I'm sure they're going to get a Christmas card from Mark for saving that money. But again, I mean, it's so spotty here. The things that are listed. How many? What they got? 2, 4, 6.
Here's another question, though.
10,
How much
14
influence did the Zuckerberg money have with representatives from the civil tech and civil life? How much did they influence Racine? Did they run the election in Racine also, like they claim in Green Bay? I mean, how much did they infiltrate the election in the city of Racine?
I don't know how you're going to find that out. Apparently, it's not as bad as it was in Green Bay.
Well, I don't know,
Or at least
George.
no one's come up.
Well,
No one's
Care-
registered a big complaint about it yet.
Yeah, no one's come up and testified like this clerk did in Green
well,
Bay.
I think how this all came about was there's lawsuits that said, hey, the legislators should have approved those drop boxes, should have this plan was done on these
Wait.
5 cities.
There were laws set up. I've looked them up. There's specific laws with regards to how elections are to be held. Drop boxes is not part of the law.
Right.
When somebody put those out, it was in violation of the law. It'd be like me deciding I'm going to put a stop sign out in the middle of a street in front of my house because I want people to stop there. It was a violation of the law, and nothing's being done about it.
Well, I think what happened, and there was 1,400 emails released from Green Bay, and that's where this started. Now, I think these lawsuits have also asked for emails from Racine and Kenosha, Madison. They just haven't got them. Green Bay was the first one that released these emails and found out, like, whoa, who's this Facebook representative is now infiltrating himself into this. And there was testimony at a hearing in Madison that basically was saying that, there was an infiltration of not only money, also of staff.
Well, that's the allegation so far. And
Right.
And then once that's established, then they're going to have to see, well, what did the money specifically go for? What was the intended result? So on and so forth.
I think the intended result was a public-private partnership, and I think that's the problem here.
You used one of my favorite buzzwords.
Exactly.
Public-private partnership.
Exactly, and I think that's what here. Is this the Facebook election, or is it the state of Wisconsin's election?
Well, one of the things that put out, the city council, it looks as a result of all this, approved mailing of absentee ballots to all registered Racine voters. Now that's not people that requested absentee
Exactly.
ballots. They weren't absentee voters, but nevertheless, anyone who was a registered voter got a ballot in the mail. Now, that's asking for trouble. When you're just mailing out all these ballots that can be used to vote, you end up with things like them getting registered or used as a vote. And funniest thing, the person who comes in to vote finds out when they get to the voting place, you've already voted.
Yeah, but has that happened? And how many times, if at all?
It's happened a lot.
Yeah, they've got.
Now I don't know
quite a
about in Racine. I don't know about Racine. But oh no, that's happened. There's stories galore about people coming in to vote. Thousands and thousands of people that they came in to vote, and
Well, here's kind of where
their vote was set off to the side, and they said, "Well, we'll investigate it." But there's been no that I've heard. Last I heard in a story like that, there has been no decision taken on those votes yet. And this is months after the election.
Well, here's the other thing. I just want to I went back and did kind of a timeline from the beginning to kind of like get some kind of an idea. How does a private company drop that kind of money into a local community like ours when there is funds available and from the federal government that comes in and distributes funds in a community for voting? And in the state of Wisconsin, there was over $4 million from the federal government that was never used for voting. What they did is they used a lot of this private funding here. But I want to go back to March 24th when this pandemic hit. And one of the things that kind of struck me was the pandemic. I don't want to get into the COVID. I don't want to get into the election. What I want to do is orchestrate how does the thought process work for politicians, because the focus is to be reelected. And so March 24th, Governor Evers brings in the safer at home order, and people, there was a shutdown of a lot of the businesses. People were basically staying home. They were kind of unsure what was happening. Only 5 days later, the election commission drops the Wisconsin photo identification standard, and they drop in the indefinitely confined can be used as a way to vote, which previously you had to vote in person. This is 5 days later after they do this.
Well, no, the indefinitely confined, there's a specific population that addresses a need of these people. But what they're saying is they relaxed the requirements to claim that you're indefinitely confined.
Which
included, I'm confined because of COVID.
Well, it also included not having to use photo ID as a standard identifying you.
Right.
In other words, they relaxed the Wisconsin photo identification standard by enabling COVID-concerned voters to claim indefinitely confined status. So if you said, well, I'm indefinitely confined, okay, now you no longer need a photo ID to establish your identification.
Right. But here now 6 days after that, Governor Evers suspends in-person voting. Now, again, that was brought up and fought in the legislature and say, but they wanted to completely eliminate in-person voting. Now, at this time, we're only talking 2 weeks maybe, but they've gone into the election part of it. They didn't actually bring the mask in until August 1st and say the mandate to wear a mask. So what I'm saying is the election was a major issue with COVID at the beginning.
All these changes, everything
Quickly.
we've talked about so far in this conversation, the changes with the drop boxes, the in-person voting, the photo ID, all that was a result of this CCP virus, the COVID thing. So that is what precipitated it all. It was, if you're asking about whether it was used, Jim, I think it was grossly used. I mean, that was a whole change in the voting thing. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when you came in, if you wanted to vote, you appeared, and if you couldn't do it, you got an absentee ballot, but it never became permanent status.
Right.
But that was before COVID.
But here's where I'm going, George.
But that's
we're talking boom. We went right on to the elections, and we had to change that election, and everything had to make a quick move within a couple of weeks. They were making major changes.
Well, another
But
thing.
Walmart was still open.
Oh yeah.
Kmart was still open. Nobody closed. Menards was open. They were all open, and they were saying, "Well, you got to be careful, 6 feet away, and all the rest." They didn't change. I mean, if it was a real health issue, they would have, been more of addressed on something like that. They focused on election in the state of Wisconsin. That's my belief.
Well, more than the state of Wisconsin.
Well,
you read about it in other states. Wisconsin was one of them.
But here's where I'm going with it. On the 28th or on May 5th, the County Council approved mailing ballots to everyone.
Well, all registered voters.
Right. Okay. They automatically were saying we're going to do this absentee ballot. If you want it or if you didn't want it, you're going to get one. But May 28th, this is where the letter sent from the Zuckerberg Foundation to Cory Mason saying, I'm giving you $100,000. You distribute $10,000 to each of the other mayors of these other 4 cities, and you set up a Safer at Home plan. And on the 15th of June, that Safer at Home plan was given back to the organization, and on I think it was July 6th, that money was distributed. So how did this all come together? I mean, there's a bigger picture here. And how did Cory become the point?
How is he the middle of it? I mean, the other thing you were pointed out earlier was that this all blew up in Green Bay. Well, Green Bay wasn't even the central focus point. Racine was the central focus point. So if something was exploding in Green Bay, what's to assume that everything was fine in Racine?
Why do you say Racine was the central focus point?
Because Cory Mason was the one that got the money, and it was his job.
That doesn't mean Racine was a central focus. It just means that the money filtered through Racine. But
I call that a central focus point.
Well, not necessarily.
Well, no, not necessarily, but it certainly is a strong indication. You know the old saying, follow the money.
Yeah.
And if the money came to Racine and then went out to these other places.
Why Cory?
Yeah.
Did he have contact with this organization prior to, the year? I mean, was this set up?
I'd be interested in knowing who exactly contacted Facebook, because I can't imagine Mark Zuckerberg being so interested that he's going to put $400 million. Well, this is a spring election, but that he's going to put $400 million into the election process, just out of the goodness of his heart. I think that somebody approached him with the idea, or approached Facebook, and developed a plan to convince them that that's a good investment. Now, why is somebody with that kind of money going to invest that kind of money? Obviously, because it's going to give them some kind of an advantage
I agree.
somewhere in the marketplace.
Yeah. There's definitely power and money. Follow those two, and you're going to come to an answer.
Yeah,
at some
well, for
point.
whatever reason, he felt that one political party would give him a lot more comfort than the other political party, because he was obviously aiming at one of the political parties.
Yeah, well, we can get into that whole
Yeah.
thing. That's a big.
I'm
can of
just
worms
saying. Well,
open.
Doc brought up the thing. Well, Zuckerberg wasn't. Yeah, I can see where he's the one that developed Facebook, and he's developing some executives around him that have some good planning of how you're going to expand your market away from the technical side, getting over to the business side, and part of that is going to be
A favorable political
it's going to be
environment. Legal environment.
that's
And
part of the whole
politics
thing.
affects the,
It's-
legalities.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, agreed. He might not have been hands-on, the guy that was contacting Cory Mason.
But he's signing the checks. He must have thought it was a
That's
good
right.
idea.
And the $400 million came out. 400 million, came
That's a
out of
good
it.
investment.
That's
Okay.
$500 million.
Well,
That's a lot. That's
I got
a
another
lot of
thing
bucks.
here. I got a rough draft. I don't know if it's been filed yet, but Hot Government, this local group here, and we all know it, or some parts of it now and then, are actually putting in an open records request. They are asking the National Vote at Home Institute, which was somehow tied to the Center for Tech and Civil Life. Those are words that they want to find out, what are the emails to anyone in the city between this certain period of time. Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan. Then, of course, they want emails from a number of city employees, the mayor, finance director, the clerk, quite a few, and a lot of Cory Mason's staff, to find out if Michael Spitzer Rubenstein was contacting them at the same thing. So, I mean, this is daisy chaining down the road here from Green Bay to Milwaukee, I think to Racine and Kenosha. I think you're going to see this is not going to go away because there's a lot of people out there that are upset. And if there is something here where, I mean, there may not even be a vote lost or gained, but the fact is that you have a private company funding an election. It doesn't bode well for.
Well, it
anyone.
raises questions in your mind. You know, exactly what was your intention there? What was your purpose for doing this? Now, we know that there's always been dirt in politics. It's just, it's part of the game.
Right.
It really is. Dirt and money. But this is one particular one that happened in Wisconsin and come directly through our community.
And we've been
by way
actually a
of the
pretty
mayor.
good state. We've had a pretty good state of elections. We've had a pretty good reputation.
Yeah, we've had
in
a
Wisconsin.
decent history.
I mean, we've had our issues, but certainly not like Louisiana, Mississippi. There's had some real. I mean, there's been murders for crying out loud, But I mean, Wisconsin's been pretty clean.
We don't usually kill people.
Yeah, we don't kill them
Yeah,
here
yeah.
usually.
Oh boy, I tell you, it's going to be interesting though to see what the response is for this request. I wonder if there'll be any kind of if somebody will try to put up a cover story like, well, that's a private firm. They don't have to.
It's going to be
They don't have to
interesting
give
to
out
watch
their
it.
emails.
I think my guess is that these emails are going to be tough to get, and I think there's going to have to be a lot of digging by people in the community to find out what's really happened here. There's something wrong here, and
Well, where are the records for one thing? I mean, are they in City Hall? We know City Hall is closed right now.
Yeah, well-
I mean, where do these records actually come from?
who
and
signed the contract with Facebook is one of the questions I'd ask, because who's on the hook? Because there is a contract, literally, that Antiranium signed in Kenosha. We did find that. We have not found the other cities, the contracts. I assume they're the same thing.
Well, they're probably pretty close.
Yeah. And there's a clawback in there. Do what we tell you, or we're going to take back that money. And that's why these
Well,
finance...
you got to be careful there. It's not do what we tell you. It's do what you said you were going to do that we approved of.
Well-
there's a fine line there.
Yeah, well...
So I'm just saying be careful of throwing accusations.
Well,
out
it
there.
says in our
throw
sole
the facts out and let the story
Yeah,
develop.
that wording makes it pretty loose in the favor of Mark Zuckerberg, where they can ask for the return of all or part of the grant funds it determines in its sole judgment. In other words, the organization Zuckerberg, in his sole judgment, says that.
If you complied with what we agreed to,
That doesn't say that.
I get to decide.
Yeah, I get to decide whether you
right,
complied with it. Right.
And that's the problem with this contract. Who signed this contract? I mean, that's a big term in there. You can't go to court. You can't get mediation.
No,
it's
no,
our
it's
sole
in.
judgment.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That's a real issue for the
That's
mayors.
a pretty wild statement for anyone to sign. You know, we talked about the deed in lieu of foreclosure and machinery roll.
Yeah.
This is even looser than that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, politics, and in particular politics in Racine, there's a long history of being fast and loose with money. You know, and this is another
All right,
example
what do you think?
here.
What do you think? Is this going to come and
Well, we've been see the problem with all this, Jim, and with this open records request and the city hall is we've been through an awful lot of that with a lady called Sandy Widener.
Yeah.
And we know how much they resist it, and unfortunately, you know, if they do the same thing with this, they did with Sandy Widener, start claiming the same crap, then I think it's time we just, you know, do like Green Bay is doing. Let's just get rid of all these people, let's get, you know, and get some people in there that are going to be responsive to the people that are supposed to be running the city, which is the people themselves. The government is just, you know, you're basically there for the police and the fire department and pick up the garbage. You know, you're not supposed to be involved with everybody's life and telling what we can and can't do. And that's... They've gone too far, and then when we try to dig into it and find out why are you doing this, you say we're not going to tell you.
Well, in support of your suspicions there's absolutely no reason to not believe that the Sandy Widener case is precedent to this kind of control,
that's exactly
where they
right.
can say, no, you don't have any right to that
Right.
information.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, that's
look at the Sandy Widener case.
attorney-client privilege. You
Yeah,
know, that's
yeah.
attorney work papers.
Yeah, all of a
Right.
sudden, all this could be attorney-client
everything
privilege
is like,
all of a sudden.
covered up.
Yeah. So it's time.
yeah.
It's clean house.
Yeah.
Time
it
to
is.
clean
It
house.
is. Unless they decide they're going to change their ways and give us some information.
No,
This
clean
is-
house.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen. Well, what else have we got, gentlemen? This is going to be an ongoing story. This is the opening salvo.
Right.
The fact that
This
they're
is-
going after the
you
mayor
know,
up in
and
Green Bay.
I got to say, we did our homework on this early on, and we brought this Facebook Zuckerberg money on early on. We were,
Yeah,
no one else brought it up other than they were collecting it.
We were looking for
asking
that
questions.
mobile
Yeah, we're
voting
looking for a
thing. Yeah,
voting mobile
the
precinct for
camper.
$250,000.
$500,000 camper.
The vote mobile.
That's got a vote machine in it or something like
my
that. I
gosh.
mean, that makes that adds, you know, that quadruples.
Well, I'm glad
the price.
Green Bay is looking into it because it may give us a little bit of more detail because obviously they released
Well, plus,
1,400
that's a
emails.
precedent that
Yes.
gets established, and
And-
hopefully it'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
so
and-
that we have better access to the
Yeah.
information.
So,
that
and this
we would
is
like
the
to
kind of
see.
stuff. I mean, you're going to fix it. Well, you're not going to fix this anymore. But you've got to get this under control so this doesn't happen again. And where are our legislators? Where is the Wisconsin Election Commission? I mean, where the hell are they? I mean, they dropped the ball big time. And that's all of them.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. The history of voting in America is
Fraught with problems.
fraught with problems. That's a generous
It's been
way of
going on for a
explaining it.
while, yes.
Yes. And it's going to continue, and hopefully it's going to. I think it's here and there. It's getting a little better by and by.
Well, I think the
mean,
more you educate, the better.
Have we
Well,
got our acting gear at least right here?
Well, absolutely.
The three of
we
us?
do.
Okay.
Yeah, no question about it.
We're straight.
I watched a thing just last night on PBS about women's suffrages and how they got to vote in 1920. 1920, women weren't allowed to vote until then. So, you know, elections.
Women
There's a lot of-
accomplished a lot before they got the right to vote.
Yeah.
They managed to get prohibition in without being able to vote.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Women can do a lot of things, believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, there's no secret there.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on these guys, and we hope you
gals.
do too. Thanks for being here. Come back next week, and we'll have some more fun together.